Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Birmingham City Commission on July 14, 2025, here in the municipal building at 151 Martin Street. If you could please all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Ms. Bingham, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Treeslaw.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Baller is absent. Commissioner Emmerine.
Here.
Commissioner Haig.
Here.
Commissioner Host.
Here.
Commissioner Anthony Long.
Here.
And Commissioner Schaefer is absent.
Thank you. Because Mayor Pro Tem Baller is absent this evening, we need to appoint a temporary Mayor Pro Tem.
I would like to appoint Commissioner Anthony Long to be Mayor Pro Tem.
All in favor?
Sure. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, you are the official temporary Mayor Pro Tem.
Stay here, I'm going to move there.
You can do whatever you want.
Stay where I'm at. Okay.
Matches your name tag that way.
Okay, exactly.
All right, we move to proclamations, congratulatory resolutions, awards, appointments, resignations, and confirmations, administration of oath, and introduction of guests and announcements. We are proclaiming that July is National Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas Parks and Recreation are an integral part of communities across this country, including Birmingham, and whereas Parks and Recreation promote health and wellness, promote time spent in nature, encourage physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking, and other activities promoting active lifestyles, and whereas Parks and Recreation are essential and adaptable infrastructure that makes our communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change, and whereas Parks and Recreation programming and education activities are critical to childhood development, and Parks and Recreation increase a community's economic prosperity, and Parks and Recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community. Birmingham recognizes the benefits derived from Park and Recreation resources, so therefore, be it resolved with this proclamation that I, Treeslaw, Mayor of the City of Birmingham, on behalf of the City Commission and citizens of Birmingham, note that July is recognized as Parks and Recreation Month in the City of Birmingham, Michigan. All right, now we move to appointments. We have an applicant for the Multimodal Transportation Board, Mr. Josh Dobritsky. If you're here, you're welcome to come to the podium and tell us why you are interested in serving. For the commission's benefit, I will note that Mr. Dobritsky, and I hope I'm saying that close to correctly, has applied as for one of the two alternate positions that end 10/27/28, but it would be the commission's discretion to appoint him to the regular position for an urban planning architect design background, should you choose, because the charter says insofar as is possible. So either way, he would serve and be seated on the Multimodal Transportation Board as an alternate. He would be seated while there's an empty regular position, or we could choose to appoint him to the regular position if he was interested. So take it away.
Thank you for your time. The brief comments are just of my background and interest. I'm a homeowner in the city for almost 20 years. I have a lot of multimodal experience just from being a driver. I have kids, 3 kids in the neighborhood here. They're on their bikes, they're runners. We are getting our motorcycle permits soon. I'm also a commercial truck driver with experience, so quite an array of background. My original experience was a aerospace engineer, so not that we're planning for rocket ships around here, but at least some other transportation experience. Currently do patent work in the area of patent strategy, so wrangle a 30-person team, large budget, multi-year projects, and at the end of the day, I'd like to contribute back to the city. So really, that's my motivation for being here.
All right, any questions for Josh? Commissioner Emmerine.
So Mayor Long mentioned that you might be interested in the full-term position under urban planning architecture design. Is that true? Would you be interested in serving until March 24, 2028 underneath that?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the commission?
So, I guess, first of all, thank you for volunteering. Do we want to, I guess the question for the commission is, do we want to put him as an alternative member, even though he's going to be, since there's a vacant, I mean, he would be seated and would attend most meetings and take away for the opportunity, because I'm assuming you don't have urban planning or architecture design background.
No, I don't. Not
No.
class-
Yeah.
But we have not had a great history of
Finding somebody with that?
who's interested in serving on this board.
Okay.
Correct.
My concern was just that's there for a reason. I thought it's worth
Yes.
at least mentioning.
But it's not a requirement, and insofar as is possible.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Could it be argued that as an aerospace degreed person, that's design? It's not architecture design, one word, it's separated as design.
Yeah, I don't think we need to fit him in. I'm not concerned about that. I'm more concerned about whether if we put him in, then somebody comes with that background, that we're losing the potential for that background. But if we haven't been able to fill that,
Ms. Acker.
Yes, and since I was the original liaison to that board when we started in 2013 or 14, there was one person that I can think of that had that background on the board since its inception. It's been a particularly hard position to fill for some
okay.
reason.
Well, that answers that question. All
I
right.
think we kind of fill based on who wishes to serve at the time.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at everybody in there and just trying to think through what everyone's backgrounds are from memory. And there is a bit of a trend as far as what we have on that board right now, but that's not actually necessarily a bad thing, thinking about where a couple of them are coming from sometimes. So I don't see a problem with having this turn into the regular position instead of an alternate.
All right, would you like to make that motion, Commissioner
Okay,
Hay?
well, let's make sure I get the right wording here then. Okay, so to appoint Mr. Josh Dobrowitzki, mangled your name, I'm sorry,
Fantastic.
as a regular member to the Multimodal Transportation Board to serve a 3-year term to expire March 2028.
Second.
March 24th, 2028.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
And if you'll
Thank
be
you.
seated for a moment till we review the next appointment, and then the clerk would swear you in.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right, now we have an applicant to the Ethics Board, Isabella McHale, who is a student. Yes.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you so much for your time and for welcoming me. So, my name is Isabella McHale. I have been a resident of the city of Birmingham for about 5 years. Not only me, but my 2 sisters live in the city as well with their families, so we love to be able to be close to each other, walk to each other. We do almost every day. I am a senior at the University of Michigan, majoring in public policy at the Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy, where I focus in morality and ethics. I'm also minoring in Middle Eastern Studies. There, I have been actively trained to not only analyze but solve real-world political situations and find policy solutions for them by conducting research and presenting them in the form of memos and opinions. Further, I had the amazing opportunity of working in the Birmingham City Clerk's office every summer for the past 3 years, starting as an intern and then progressing to the election inspector to clerical assistant. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to work there this summer due to other opportunities, but it has been such a great time in my life, and I'm very appreciative for my time there, because that is where I was able to familiarize myself with city policy and also learn how to research relevant code and ordinances through Municode. Although I'm young, I am very confident in myself and my abilities to partake in Birmingham's Ethics Board and provide valuable insight and a fresh perspective, drawing from my education, my active education, and also from everything that I've learned working within the city of Birmingham. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. McHale? Mayor Pro Tem temporary?
Wow, that's a lot. Thank you for volunteering. So the members of this particular body draft like legal opinions. And although you have a very impressive background, you have not drafted legal opinions and you're not in law school. So I know we had another candidate come before us that also wanted to fill this position, and we were hesitant with that applicant. I think it was 2 or 3 meetings ago, because they don't have a legal background or a background with regard to writing, analyzing ethical situations, and then drafting legal, ethical opinions. So I have some concern with regard to that. I'll leave it to my fellow commissioners to weigh in.
Mr. Host.
I do not, because the University of Michigan treats morality and ethics very well. You know, it's rather nationally known that the law school is a constitutional powerhouse.
Commissioner Emmerine.
I kind of share the same thoughts that Commissioner Long mentioned. This is, well, I've read a lot of these opinions. They're very in-depth legal opinions, for which I would not be qualified. I think that attorneys or people that have dealt with ethics for forever are more suited for this role. So I'm a little hesitant to fill this position tonight.
Commissioner Haig.
Yeah, I kind of want to echo the same thing, that the way you've presented what you've presented is extremely valuable. It's got a lot of use, but to me, it's a different pool. So coding, ordinances, et cetera, is extremely different to ethics because of the legalities involved. And I would say rather let's put it this way, the reason why there are openings have happened on this board is because the legal depth for the folks that have stepped out is quite astonishing. They are very impressive people, and I think
From a legal standpoint.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Well, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah. Their knowledge, their skill base was very, very particular in a field, and I do have some concerns that you have an interest, but I think it needs more than an interest right now. I'm actually looking at other boards to see if there's something that would actually be better for you. I literally have it on the screen right now, trying to see if there's something that would be better for you, because I don't think this is the right one for you, but I love the enthusiasm and the wish for engagement, and I would love to see a different position, because I don't think this is quite right, because this is actually going to be kind of a hard one to fill as well, because of the specialized nature of what I think we need. And that's why I'm hesitant to support it. And I'm also very reluctant to say that, because I hate saying to somebody that wants to volunteer for something, I'm sorry, but.
Yeah.
So I'm actually looking right now to see if there's something else I can suggest to you.
Yeah, and I would concur with the other commissioners that it's my preference that the alternate is an attorney, because there's such a long learning curve for this that should we lose one of the regular member attorneys, I would want an attorney who is ready to go.
Sure.
Who had to be able to step in, so.
I would. You have a very impressive background.
Thank you.
I would love to see you. That's something a little better fit.
Sure.
Unless you decide to go to law school, and then please come back when you've gone through that process. But I think you will. I almost feel like you'd find it frustrating and a super long learning curve to be able to participate. I am an attorney. I practiced for 30 years. I actually handle the ethics for a large law firm. So I know kind of what it takes, and I'm still learning 30 years in. So I think there's some better positions for you within the city, and maybe we can talk kind of offline about some other things that are open that may interest you. In the meantime, if you just Google City of Birmingham open committees or what have you, it pops right up on Google. And my fellow commissioners looking at it right now, there's a ton of things that are open that I think would probably be a better fit for you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at them right now, the first two that sort of jump out to me based off what you've talked about, what you've done here at the city, maybe board review or zoning appeals may actually line up a lot better with what you've done background-wise, and you would actually bring some value in there that I would love to see.
I feel like it's something I would want to just research a little bit on my own.
Just
but,
giving it to you as just suggestions.
Yeah,
That's
we're
okay.
not
Well,
asking
thank
you
you
to
so
commit
much.
this evening.
Okay,
Oh, not at all.
But thank you so much, and I completely understand your reservations. I just thought I would throw myself out there. But thank you so much, and I completely understand.
Given the number of things, openings, we wish more people would do that. So thank you for doing that.
No
And please come back next time, next meeting.
When I go to law school, I'll come back.
Come back next time with regard to with regard to some other, and
Take a look
I'll
at the
look
others,
at it.
please.
Yes,
and then
I will.
yeah,
if
and come
they-
back again in a
come
month or
back.
whatever.
No,
Yeah.
thank you guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Bingham, did you want to swear in Josh?
So you're going to raise your right hand. You'll say, "I do" after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of this state, and endeavor to secure and maintain an honest and efficient administration of the affairs of Birmingham, free from partisan distinction or control, and to perform the duties of office of Multimodal Transportation Board according to the best of my ability.
I do.
So you're just going to sign right there and print your name, and I'll fill in the rest.
Thank you. We now move to open to the public for matters that are not on the agenda this evening.
Hello, good evening. David Bloom on Wallace Street. I'm here to ask you all a question. I had heard, and I don't know if it's correct or not, so I came to ask if it was true, that our city attorney is threatening the library to charge them rent for use of the library building if the library fails to comply with city directives such as paying more for city services or lowering the millage next year. So I'd like to ask if that threat was made. Was it something that the city attorney did on their own or at the city manager's request? If the city commission knows about it, if that's the policy or the city commission intends to go through with that threat of charging rent to the library for the use of that building. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom. We recently found that the library is indeed independent, and I believe that the city is negotiating with the library all terms about how, but I have no other comment about that particular item because that has not come to us.
Thank you.
All right. Any public comment online? You can use the raise your hand function, and we will call on you.
I don't see anybody.
I see none. We move to the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and approved by a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of the items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered under the last item of new business. Any commissioners wish to pull any items?
G and J.
G and J. All right, and I want to pull item B. So,
E for echo, was that?
B.
B as in boy?
B as in boy. All right, so we have B, G, and J. Anything else? Does any citizen wish to pull an item from the consent agenda? All right, I see none. Could we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to move the consent agenda with the exceptions of item B, G, and J.
Second.
All right, we have a motion. Any comment on the motion? Ms. Bingham, a roll call vote.
Commissioner Host?
Yes.
Mayor Therese Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Anthony Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Emmerine?
Yes.
Commissioner Haig?
Yes.
All right, in alpha order, we will start with item B. There was requested by absent Commissioner Baller a minor correction to the minutes, page 10, item 6-22125, Planning Board Review of Outdoor Dining Permissions. The motion itself, he believes that he said whether it is appropriate to have private property owners entering into agreements for use rather than public.
Okay, we'll review the record.
All right, and with that, I make the motion to move the approval of the commission meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Long, item G.
Really quickly, just this sets a public hearing on August 11th. I always like to pull public hearings so that it's heard by those who are not here, as well as those who are here, with regard to an ordinance amendments to open space standards, to add additional open space standards for single-family residential zone properties. I just wanted, for anybody who might have any interest in that, that it's going to be a public hearing on August 11th. And with that, I'll move item, go ahead.
It's also amending the definition.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. With that comment, I will move item G.
All right, any other comments? Okay, Ms. Bingham, roll call vote?
Commissioner Emmerich,
Yes.
Mayor Therese Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Anthony Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Host,
Yes.
Commissioner Haig.
Yes.
All right, and item J, please.
Item J, so I used to live in this neighborhood. I don't now, but that was a real problem intersection. I don't know if you're aware, but that's where the baseball diamond is, where a lot of the women's softball leagues play. It gets very, a lot of parking around, it gets very congested, and then you add a yield sign rather than a stop sign. And I've seen a lot of close calls there when I live there and when I drive through there. So I just wanted to commend the multimodal board for their efforts in this, and I think it's spot on, and I applaud it.
Yes.
I still live in this neighborhood, and everything Commissioner Long said is 100% true, except it's not just women's softball leagues, it's children's. And there's a lot of cars going right through. That's where everybody parks to go to those baseball games. And everything Commissioner Long said is spot on. So good job by the multimodal board. I agree with this 100%.
Great. And with that, unless there's any other comments, I'll move for item J.
All right,
Second.
all right. Ms. Bingham, roll call vote?
Mayor Therese Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Anthony Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Emmerich,
Yes.
Commissioner Host,
Yes.
Commissioner Haig.
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes the consent agenda. We have no city manager's report this evening. There will be one at the next meeting this month. We have no unfinished business, so we move to new business. Our first item is a public hearing for 479 South Old Woodward, Birmingham Tower, special land use permit, final site plan and design review, a request to postpone. So I'm going to open the public hearing, allow Ms. Ecker to make some comment about the postponement.
Yes, the reason that this particular item was set for a public hearing, and it went before the planning board at the last meeting. At that time, there was no decision made on the request, given what the planning board deemed an untimely filing of additional information, and they wanted more time to review it, and it will be coming back at a later date. Of course, the commission, under a special land use permit, it requires the recommendation, either for or against, from the planning board. So since it hasn't gone to the planning board, that's why it's gone. There was no recommendation made. It's being requested to postpone it to a date certain, for August 11th, when it will have gone to the planning board, because it was postponed, and it will go before the planning board later this month.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the public about this postponement? In the room or online using the raise your hand function? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Would a commissioner like to make the motion?
Just want to ask a quick question. Isn't this the second postponement or third? Haven't we done this before? I'm just trying to remember. This is ringing a bell, but I don't remember
I
exactly.
believe
Well, I can tell you, if you look in the report, the staff report from the planning board, this particular project has been discussed probably 9 or 10 times with changes made
I know
over
it's
the
come
years.
through, but I seem to remember hasn't this public hearing been postponed a couple of times in the
Yes.
recent
Oh,
months?
at the planning board level, yes.
Yeah.
The first one, there was a resident of the adjacent property that raised a notice issue. While we did not deem that there was a legal notice problem with the
Okay.
notice that was given, in the interest of transparency and fairness to all, we re-noticed it, even though it met the legal requirement, and it was postponed for that reason, and then this issue came up at the latest meeting.
Okay, all right. No, I just wanted to check because I thought I'd seen it before and I remembered to
you
postpone it.
did.
All right, thank you. Well, if that's the case, then I can make the motion. I just got to read through where it is. All right. If you want, yep. Okay, make a motion adopting a resolution to postpone the special land use permit and final site plan and design review application for 479 South Old Woodward to permit the modification of the approved floor plans and the issuance of a waiver for 49 off-street parking spaces pursuant to Article 3, Section 3.04, parentheses D3A, close, of the zoning ordinance to a date certain of August 11th, 2025.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any commissioner comments on the motion?
Just that the planning board will deal with it a week from Wednesday, the 23rd.
All right, any public comment on the motion in the room or online using the raise your hand function? All right, seeing none, Ms. Bingham, a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Haig?
Yes.
Commissioner Emmerine?
Yes.
Commissioner Host?
Yes.
Mayor Therese Law?
Yes.
Commissioner Anthony Long?
Yes.
Thank you. We now move to new business B, resolution to award the Willits and Bates paving project.
Melissa Cota will be joining us on Zoom. She's
All right.
recovering from an illness and didn't wish to share her her germs, so to
We
speak.
appreciate that.
That's nice of her.
Melissa, if you're listening, I just unmuted you.
Thank you. Commissioners, I'm right down the hallway in case any questions come up. So with this, bringing forward to you is to be able to do a contract award for the Willits and Bates paving project. With this, it went out for bids in May. We received bids at the beginning of June. We received 2 bids from contractors. The low bidder is Al's Asphalt. They have recently done projects for subcontractors within the city. One recently is Oakland and Hayes projects. They were a subcontractor for Eminent Excavating. And back in the 2021 resurfacing program, they were the paving contractor, so they did parking lot number 5 during that time frame. And so with this, we would like to award the contract for this project to Al's Asphalt. With this, for the budget, it was in fiscal year 24-25. Since now we're in fiscal year 25-26, we just need a budget amendment. The amounts within each of the funds is, it needs we meet the budget for it, but we just need a budget amendment to carry it over from the 24-25 fiscal year to the 25-26 fiscal year that we're currently in. And I'm available for any additional questions at all on this contract award.
Any questions for Ms. Cota?
The costs, I asked a few meetings ago, and I'll keep asking this. Did we manage to have the opportunity, and maybe not on this one, but did we have the opportunity to try and compare them not to previous projects in the city, but to other projects that have been performed by other municipalities? Just because I'm starting to look at total cost of all projects we have here, and the Birmingham premium is getting old.
We have not on this one. We didn't have enough time to be able to do that review for that, but we will be able to do that with projects going forward.
Thank you. I guess that was the answer, and that's why I prefaced it that way, so thank you very much.
I think somewhere in the packet, though, it did say that the cost came in within 5% of the engineer's estimate for the project, so it wasn't wildly over that.
1%.
Within 1%. Even better. Any other questions or comments?
We talked about this one a lot in the past, haven't we?
Would someone care to make the motion then?
I'll make the motion, if I may.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution to award the Willits and Bates paving project, number 8-25, PN, to Al's Asphalt Paving Company, in the amount of $1,020,795.50, plus a 10% construction contingency, for a total of $1,122,875.06. In addition, to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement on behalf of the city, contingent upon the execution of the agreement and meeting all the insurance and bond requirements by Al's Asphalt Paving. The fund account, fund ID, project award, 10% contingencies, and total amounts are set forth on page 3 of 8B of the packet, and to approve the appropriation of the amendment of the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget, as also set forth on page 3 of 8B of the packet.
Second.
Ms. Ecker?
When you're finished.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Any commission comments on the motion? Any public comments on the motion in the room or online using the raise your hand function? Seeing none, Ms. Bingham, a roll call vote, please.
Mayor Therese Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Anthony Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Hoofs?
Yes.
Commissioner Haig?
Yes.
Commissioner Emmerine?
Yes.
Ms. Ecker.
Brief comment was to Commissioner Haig's point about us looking at what other communities are weighing in at. I just wanted to update you on something that we have done in that regard. We've met with some of our engineering consultants, and it looks like we're going to have some of the consultants actually put together the estimates for us too, because first of all, then it's a little more field tested because they work with other communities all around and similar projects and may have more current ones and better examples to relate it to. So we haven't done anything in that regard, but we have met to discuss doing that, and that's partially because of the comment to look at what other municipalities
Ideal,
are
thank
being
you.
charged.
Thank you, Ms. Ecker. All right, we now move to new business C, commission items for future discussion. A motion is required to bring up the item for future discussion. The next reasonable agenda, no discussion on the topic will happen tonight. Any items? All right, seeing none, we move to new business D. Commission discussion on items from a prior meeting. We have a presentation on tree-related communications. Mr. Zelinski
May I
and Ms. Ecker.
Give a comment at the beginning. I just wanted to point out for anybody that's watching this meeting, thank you, Mr. Zelinski, for being here and for putting together that great report on our urban forest initiatives. And just to, if you remember when we talked about this before, there was some thought that there isn't a lot of communication with residents on what goes on with regards to public trees. So I just want to point out, number one, remember that these trees that we're speaking of tonight are not, they are public trees. So they're city-owned trees on city-owned property, such as the right-of-way, the easement in front of your house, usually between the sidewalk and the curb, if there is a sidewalk, or on public parks or in medians. So the city owns the property, the city owns the tree, and the homeowner adjacent does not pay any taxes on that particular strip of property. Well, it feels like it's part of their property, it's not. All of these things that you're going to hear from Mr. Zelinski apply to public trees only, not private trees on somebody's individually owned property.
Thank you. Mr. Zelinski.
Hello. So yeah, to Jana's point, lots of residents will call up and say, my tree out front is getting removed, or something of that nature, and usually come to find out it is a city tree that they are speaking of. And we respect the passion that people have for the trees within the city, but technically speaking, the ones along the right-of-way are typically the city's owned trees. Within the city, we actually have, from the report, we talk about that there's 25,000 trees. And of the 25,000, there are approximately 15,000 along our right-of-way. It's a lot of trees if you really think about it. And we are constantly doing different types of evaluations. Some are in-house, some are through consultants. And I just wanted to give a little history to kind of make sure people are aware of exactly how we get to what we determine is a tree that needs to be removed. To start with, before I was the director, they worked with two consultants. One was Hart, who was mainly doing the removals, and we had an arborist on staff in case we ran into a situation in which, like when we're doing a water main emergency repair, that type of thing, if we thought a tree needed to come down because it was getting too close to our break hole that we were working on, to get their opinion on it. I know from when I was in engineering that the arborist that they had at the time, Larry, was amazingly good at finding ways to save trees, because there was times where I thought we needed to remove the tree because we were going to do too much damage to the tree. And Larry would explain how, well, given the age of this tree, the current root condition, that sort of thing, we actually think that although you expose probably like 20% of those roots, that tree's probably going to be fine. We just got to be careful when we put the material back in. So I was actually surprised that as someone who could stand to gain from it, he would actually advise in situations not to remove trees. It was a common misconception that they were straight saying, remove tree, remove tree, remove tree, and the city was just, okay, okay, okay. Now, in addition to that, most of the trees that initially ended up on the list, and we still have 650-ish trees on the list from Davy Tree Company as recommended removals. Now, that doesn't mean we're running out and removing 650 trees automatically just because they're on a list for a recommended removal from a consultant. A lot of these trees we monitor, we watch. We look for what we consider safety and health reasons to remove trees. So when a 3-inch pear tree is recommended for removal because it's basically dead, our look is, well, what's the worst that happens in a storm? A 3-inch tree, some would consider a sapling, will tip over. It's probably not going to hurt anybody. So for us, it's low on our concern list for safety to the public, and therefore is not an immediate removal. It's recommended removal, but we're not just going to go out and remove it immediately. Might not look the greatest, but we recognize we should put the priority on removals to the health and safety of those individuals who are in our city at any given time. Move forward, I came over to DPS, and as part of the newer contract, we wanted to ensure that there was a clear difference because of those concerns, that the city had arborists that could review trees and make clear final decisions on the removals, so that it was no longer confused with, could the contractor be saying, we should remove this tree, the city doesn't have an expert, and we remove it. So Ron Dix, who still works for the DPS now, has nearly 20 years' experience as an arborist, was put in charge of making those decisions while we work to get other certifications. You'll see in our report that there's 3 other individuals who are certified now, one of which went through Michigan State University's School of Forestry prior to getting his, before working for the city and then getting his arborist certification. My head of my foreman for the forestry group has his certification, and then my most outstanding arborist who does most of the tree evals himself, Brandon, is not only certified, but he has additional certifications through ISA. He sits on a state board now as a member of a deciding body for how a lot of these tree situations should be handled. So we're not only just worrying about our trees, we're worrying about everybody's trees. The amount of training that they go through, obviously there's minimum requirements for certifications, but as with everything else, we encourage them to attend bigger, larger conferences. This coming year, we actually are going to be attending a national convention associated with arbor stuff that happens to be in Detroit. So I just want to clarify that it's continual learning that occurs, and it's not just a set way we do things. It's, continual process with the heart always being around safety for the community in what we decide to remove. Our city, as you go through and read up on the history of the demographic of our trees, we do have what's a lot of silver maples. And that tends to be, in our storm damage issues, 9 times out of 10, it's a silver maple that's the problem. The worst thing about a silver maple, it can look perfectly fine on the outside, and you'll lose a limb or the whole tree will tip over because it's actually completely rotted on the inside. One of the greatest cases that I've seen where we were fortunate based on an engineering project that we needed to remove a tree is for the upcoming intersection of Brown Southfield signal improvements. The tree had a little bit of canopy damage, and to any average person who looked at it, you would assume that it was a perfectly healthy tree. It is now one of our favorite pieces to show off at our different community events because there was, out of I believe a 32-inch or 34-inch trunk base, 22 inches of cavity. That tree could have easily at any time been blown over in a storm. Before coming here, I reviewed a few just recent, in the past year, stories about kids who have died in their car because a tree fell on it. That's my number one fear. And I can't explain that enough to anyone. I don't have kids personally, but I could not imagine being a parent who loses a kid, that you're driving down the street and a tree falls on it. So that's the seriousness that my department takes when we do our tree evals. And so when it comes to communication stuff, we do try to be as straightforward as possible, because we recognize, there's ownership and passion for the trees in this city that go beyond the fact that it's a city tree. It's in front of individuals' houses. We know it affects the aesthetics of the property. We know it affects the property value. And so we go out of our way to try to make contact in person. When we're not able to make contact in person, we put door hangers or we send postcards, sometimes both. We're opting more towards both because we are hearing that sometimes people don't get the door hanger just because maybe it happened to blow off. Maybe because it was a door hanger, the resident didn't look at it as thoroughly because they're like, well, it can't be that important if it's just a door hanger. Maybe that's why they need the postcard. So we're trying to amplify how we reach out to these people prior to doing any type of removal. And then when we do removals, we discuss with the residents through another postcard or door hanger or in person, whatever we're able to accomplish, what's going to be coming with the next tree. Are we, what we hope you can provide for us as a resident who lives next to this tree to help it grow. Can you help us water it? We give general tips on how to help the trees survive, succeed, and even grow faster if possible. These are just our base level things. And it might not sound like a lot, but we're also trying to, during our DPS open house, we try to educate people as to why we're removing what feels like a ton of trees. The reality is on average, the last few years, we've had a lot more storm damage than we had in previous years. So there has been a general elevation in number of trees removed. Once we have storm damage, especially on these silver maples, it increases the risks associated with continual decay of that tree and will elevate it quickly on our list for why we need to remove it. The general average, we believe, is between 300 and 400 trees we've removed in the last 2 to 3 years. Now, 15,000 trees, it's a decent percentage, but it's still relatively small. Given our general age of our forest as a whole, urban forest, it's not a direct surprise that some of these trees that grow really fast, like silver maples, are basically already aged out. Similar to a different problem we have in the city. There's a lot of Orangeburg. It's well beyond its design life. You never know when that ticking time bomb's going to go off. And it's a similar kind of concern. Obviously, Orangeburg directly impacts a specific house, but a tree could impact your neighbor. It could impact a random person who just happens to be driving down your street. Hence why we put so much into why we remove things. In general, we do evaluations almost daily on trees. And we do have hot list trees that we try to keep a better eye on than others. If it's starting to look bad, we'll come through and look at it. Sometimes, in the past, since this actually came up as a topic that you guys wanted to come back, we get residents that, they see us trimming a tree on one street, they'll go, hey, can you come look at this tree in front of my house? It's, I think it needs to be trimmed. And when we come to trim it, that's when we're going, oh man, this tree's actually in much worse shape than we anticipated. And it'll turn into a need to remove. These items, they come up constantly because we're constantly out there. We're out there patrolling. We're trying to talk to the public whenever they're available so that they can understand more about what's going on. But there's probably never enough education with this. And those who want to listen, it's great. And they truly understand why we're removing what we're removing. But, I completely understand. My parents have a silver maple in front of their house. They love it for the shade. I stare at it, nervous as can be, that one day it's gonna fall on their house. And I've had conversations with them, because I'm not kidding you, this thing grows 10 feet from the front door and wrapped in part of their porch. And the biggest stem goes straight out over the house. My dad goes, well, you know how much that would cost to remove that? And the amount of utility bills that are gonna go up when I don't have that shade on my roof anymore? And I have to share with him stuff like I was told just last week about a woman whose husband in our town, just over a year ago during one of the storms, had a tree fall onto his car while he was driving it. He got extremely lucky. There was damage to the car. They just filed a normal insurance claim, storm damage. They immediately were like looking at every tree after that. And I only learned about this within the last month. They're like, oh yeah, you're working on that report. You know, I know you're trying hard, because we don't see trees in the road all the time. I was like, well, I would hope we don't see trees in the road all the time. But you know, it's those things that scare me. Those are the things that keep me up at night when I see a storm coming into town. I know Melissa worries about the water going, you know, all over the place with the roads and stuff. I worry about trees coming down on people's property, the risks that can happen, because that's a big thing. So,
Could you touch on the part of the report about the process and the timing for tree replacements when you take down a tree?
yeah, so the city tries to replace a tree within a year. It can depend totally on your timing of when you get added to the list as to whether or not that could affect it. And it can come down to, like, in theory, if we've only budgeted for, say, 200 in spring, 200 in the fall tree replacements, and say we remove 450 trees, it's 50 more trees than I expected. So like in recent years, that's why you've been seeing me at the different times I've been coming with bigger and bigger amounts of trees, is we found that for a period, we were removing more trees than we were replacing, and we needed to catch back up. So that can become a factor. Some areas where the tree existed might not be appropriate to put a tree back. If that space isn't big enough for a tree to be successful and survive, we have to basically choose not to put a tree there. You know, it's areas like if there's only 5 feet of right-of-way space between the sidewalk and the road edge, might not be an appropriate spot for a tree to go in, would be an example, or if it's less than 5 feet, I should say. There are areas like that where the right-of-way, because the road width is so wide, the road might be 38 feet wide in a 50-foot right-of-way, and we barely have room for the sidewalks. Those types of factors do come into play, where it's we remove a tree and we can't put it back. Now, we'll put it back somewhere else in the city, just probably not in front of that house. But typically a year.
Is that frequent or infrequent?
I would say it's more infrequent than frequent. There's just certain areas in town where you can't.
And on average, how many trees are we planting per year?
We are up to, I believe, we were just shy or just over, we're just over 400 trees this year, and we intend to keep it closer to that level and are budgeting for it in future years. My forestry foreman's sending me some information right now, probably included to your questions.
And then, Scott, if you could also touch on the diversity of the species versus what we've seen with the existing canopy.
Yes. So that's one of the big things that they are working. He says that's 400 to 475 a year is what we're planting right now. So the species of trees we plant back, so we consult the DNR and what their recommended trees are for the state of Michigan, urban versus like a rural area. There's percentages of trees that should be planted in groupings, and that comes not just at the it's not even just like, say, a white pine versus red pine. It's the whole species of tree, because typically when there's an illness that hits the species, it affects anything of the subsets. So they try to even get that mixed up also. So there's I don't know if it made it into the report. It's like a 20-20-10 rule or something like that. Trying to look and see if it's in here.
And if I can just add to that, if you think about the subdivisions that were built, say, in the 20s or the 30s, when you have what are now huge canopy trees, many of them were built with the same trees put in the right-of-way, so the entire block may be one type of tree. So Dutch elm was a problem, and then when the Dutch elm disease goes through, next thing you know, all the canopy trees in a block or 2 blocks or more are taken out. So we do try to mix them up, so that's what Scott's saying, not the
Yeah.
same species on every block, so that there is diversity, so that, you know, when the tree ages or something devastating happens, it's not gonna be all of them injured at once.
So my foreman just sent me 35 cultivars this current planting of species diversity, which is more than the 30% of maple in 2012, and it's recommended that you only have 20% per species type in any given planting. So in general, you try to diversify your species for the exact purposes of if a certain type of illness is found, if certain bug starts attacking certain types of trees, like those types of items are what we're trying to avoid having issues with, the unforeseen future issue. That's why, like we talk about the tree keeper thing in here, and this helps us track all the different types of trees, subspecies and stuff that we have going in different neighborhoods. So it's not even just, when we do this, we don't just look at, say, Shirley, and say, on Shirley, we want to ensure we have 20% this, 20% this, 20% that. We step back and go, okay, well, in this area, how can we diversify the tree plantings in this area so that we can make sure we sustain tree growth long term? Other things that they do look into too is the planting area under a power line. And there's like specific species of tree that only grow to certain heights. And so we then get limited to what we can plant in those areas based on what grows to only a certain height, so that we don't have conflicts in the future, or you don't have those amazing cut jobs that DTE likes to do that they call the inverted mohawk, where it's just a U that gets basically cut into the tree. Some trees can handle that a bit more than others, but it also can lead to decay and death of trees as well. We actually had a tree, I want to say in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, where DTA had come through and did a bunch of cutting, and when they were done, they literally left a tree that looked like it was about to fall over, because they literally cut half the tree off and it was gone and left it just.
Kind of the tree.
Yeah, and then so we had to come through, and they're like, the resident was like, I can't believe you left a tree like this, and we're like, we didn't leave a tree like that. And we went out and saw what was going on, and we recognized the style based on the other trees in the area. We knew it had to be tied to DTE for tree or their tree trimming program. And so we finished removing the tree, and we're looking at the area to see how we can put in a better tree in the future. So emergencies, we don't always get the opportunity to warn the resident that the city tree in front of their property is going to be removed. That was one where we went up to them after the fact, and they thanked us because they completely, sometimes it's obvious, right? Tree looks like it's about to tip over. This probably needs to be removed, not an issue. Their number one question was, how soon can I get a tree back? And we're like, well, we are planting trees, but it probably won't make it to the cycle because we're planting right now. We try to hit a year. Can't guarantee it though.
Commissioner Long.
Is there taking exigent emergency circumstances out of the equation for a moment, is there a schedule or a time frame where the city's going and removing trees? Is there a set schedule? Is it every other month? Is it just, how does that work?
So we have enough we have enough trees that we're concerned about that it feels like we're constantly removing trees on a regular basis. We do try to mix in tree trimming because trimming can prolong the life of trees. Our goal is to make it around the city once every 7 years. We do a lot of trimming on requests also. As far as it's like they come in like it, there's other factors that come in, right? So like Granite Heart responds really well to us when we have emergencies and stuff like that. They come in, and when there's an emergency, it's all hands on deck, cut up all the trees, get them out of the way that have fallen or like look like they're about to fall because they received significant amounts of storm damage, that sort of thing. But then they have other communities they work for also, so they're in and out of town. I would say that, yeah, he just confirmed year round, but it's more because of in recent years storm damage. So it's fairly common to have Hart in town removing trees. And it does feel like the list never ends because a storm comes in and we have to add to that list. And that's why us removing trees and getting new trees planted and eventually will aid with that, because younger tree groups, as they grow up, they're healthier, they're stronger. They're not, a lot of these silver maples are 50, 60, 80, 100 years old and are well beyond their life. I believe, and he's probably going to text me and tell me the exact age of it right now, but I believe it's around 60 years. 60, 80 years is supposed to be the anticipated life of a silver maple. And so a lot of our trees are beyond their anticipated life. Hence why we're starting to run into more and more issues. They get affected more easily by a little bit of damage. Goes a long way in that type of tree.
So could you tell us, excluding emergency storm damage, which I understand, there were some very impressive pictures from Dearborn over the weekend of 35-inch caliper trees tipped over on cars that were hollow on the inside. So excluding that type of circumstance, when a tree is identified as being a concern or a problem, what's the average length of time it's on the list, and how many times is it evaluated before you decide that it needs to be removed?
We do not remove trees especially if there's question, without at least 2 of our arborists agreeing that it needs to be removed. Now, sometimes it's an informal review is the second review. It's usually when a resident brings concern as to why we're removing the tree. We have a second arborist go out independent of the first one, do a second review on it.
But do you have like a watch period? Sure.
Depends on the severity of our review at the time. So there's a risk assessment that goes with, so like a tree can be in poor condition and be a low risk assessment, AKA the 3-inch pear tree that I described earlier on in this. If it's low risk assessment, it's more of we remove when convenient in adjacent to other work. If it is high risk assessment, AKA 35-inch silver maple, known to have issues, showing severe signs of being in poor to extremely bad conditions, we're going to take it down as quickly as possible because there's a elevated risk associated with should the tree fall over. So like, I can't give you an exact timeline. It depends on the severity at the time of our review.
Yeah. Do we mark trees? Do we mark?
Pink dot is the sign that it is intended to be removed.
Okay, and taking exigent emergencies, circumstances out of the equation for a moment, how long is that tree marked before it's removed?
It can vary.
Could be bookends. A month to a year?
I have seen a dot fade is my real answer to that.
Okay.
But typically the fastest I see them removed are like a week to 2 weeks, and that is if it's like borderline emergency. We've identified Hart happens to be in town for other removals, it's nearby, we've added it on. So it can range. I have seen trees push like a month to 2 months and paint disappears depending on what it is. I think there was a case the other year where a tree was supposed to be removed actually up near where Brad lives, and the contractor missed it on the route somehow, and we noted that the dots were really faded, and we're like, what's going on with this tree? And we realized it was supposed to be removed as a convenience. It was a half-dead tree. We were already in the area for what was considered an emergency removal, and it was convenient to remove it at that time, and it got missed. So, like, it can vary, for sure. So.
And, okay, so it's just a pink, an X or a check or a?
Dot.
Just a pink dot? Mm-hmm. And how big is that dot?
So it depends on how big the person sprays it, but I would say no more than 4 to 6 inches.
I was gonna say like the size of a CD, but
Yeah.
you may not know, some people may not know what that is anymore. I'm aging myself. No, I haven't seen it, so I'm asking. I think that there maybe could be some use of some different colors on the being watched, on the list to be cut down to, going to be cut down next week because it's going to fall over. I don't know if there's something that could be done along those lines.
The only strain with that is, if you're not aware, we don't have a formal, like, fully dedicated group for the forestry department. We have people who do significant amounts of forestry work, like my arborist, Brandon, and my foreman of forestry. Like, they focus a lot of their time on it. To continually go back to the same tree to update it with a color schedule for the sake of giving people like, hey, we might remove this in 3 months. This is being evaluated. This tree's sick, but we're watching it. That's a significant amount of manpower request.
Okay.
Although we do regularly try to check on certain trees, that I can't say with the staffing the city has currently that would be something we could take on.
Okay.
Commissioner Ryan.
I have a couple things. You mentioned, I think you said Ron Dix and Brandon Wynn. They're now on staff. They're city employees, whereas before you had DPS before you were on, had 0, right?
Yeah, technically Ron worked for the city, but his official role was not as an arborist at that time. He worked for the Parks Department, but he was not brought in and consulted for any of and that was previous administration's decision not to use him as an independent final. They did in-house make the final decisions. Our foreman and Lauren previously had final sign-offs on removals. My experience from the engineering department working with them, I felt that when they made their final decisions, it appeared to be with reasonable cause for why they're making removals, but I can't speak to the heavier details of prior to my time with them.
But you have people now. Okay. You mentioned lots of continuing education. You recently submitted your budget and all that. Is your department, are you requesting enough, and is the city providing you enough to provide these people the continuing education they need to support all their certifications and so on and so forth?
Jana has done a wonderful job of working in with the assistance of our finance department, any requests that we've made for our training for our staff.
Okay. You talked about the hollow tree at Southfield and Brown. Is that the tree that's in the packet on page 418 out of 459? There's a picture in there. I don't know if that's the tree. If that's not the tree, is that what you were describing when you were talking about the hollow tree?
It's very similar. I don't know. Yes, actually, that is. That is. I recognize the buildings in the background.
It looks like a Southfield umbrella.
Yes,
so.
that is the tree that I am referring
Yeah.
to. And we now
And this is a silver maple, right? You're talking about the
Yes.
silver maple with the hollow inside. This is that
Yes.
exact example. Okay. And then how can the public engage with DPS about talking about all these tree evaluations? Let's say there's a guy that lives on the street and there's a city tree, thinks it's his tree or whatever. How do they engage? Do they contact the city manager? Do they contact you, or how do they do that?
Well, unofficially, yes. In almost any way you can think of. Phone calls come into Jana, phone calls come into me, phone calls come into random staff members in like treasury and stuff. The way we prefer it is if you have a concern, you use the GovPilot system to put it in. Then we have a written record of when the request came in. Lots of people do actually use that. We get tree trimming and tree review requests through GovPilot on a regular basis.
And then when it comes in through GovPilot, your department takes action, will communicate with the resident and
Yep.
communicate with whatever the plan is if.
Yeah, and obviously, they're more than welcome to call us directly. Anyone can come over to DPS between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. Front door's normally open. Our forestry foreman's actual card to be able to contact him directly is out there along with mine, so that they can contact him directly also. Brendan does a wonderful job of getting back with people when they have questions on trees. He also handles the tree permits, so when there's a legal removal by someone other than the city for whatever reason specific, a lot of times we get lucky with these developments and it's a tree we were already eyeing that's starting to get towards those poor conditions and needs to be removed, and we're like, great, now you can plant us a new tree or two. So those things are taken into account as well.
That's it for me.
Referring to the picture that Commissioner Emmerine just brought up, so the large center portion is indeed hollow, but if you took that out of the picture and you looked at the other segments of the tree that are laying there on the ground, they show no rot, and a person could say that tree looks perfectly healthy. So I think sometimes there's confusion that, rot isn't everywhere and may not be at ground level, but there might have been sufficient rot higher up where the branching occurs that is, I know that I have a whole row of maples between my house and my neighbor's house, and the trunks are probably okay, but these are like 200-foot trees. Two giant branches of his tree have come crashing into my yard. One of them did land on my porch, and one of them missed it, like just the leafy part, and they were, the branches were like, but maybe the rest of the tree is healthy-ish, but the branches are, I'm, crossing my fingers every time we get high wind.
Well,
Right.
so to that point, that sometimes leads to other issues. So you may have in a tree like that a pocket of decay that's rather small that leads to a limb falling off. Now that the limb's fallen off, and there'll be rot typically in the area where the limb fell off, now there's an open source for more infection basically to go into the tree and cause additional rot. And so unless it's treated appropriately, it can lead to additional issues. And a lot of times these trees get damaged really far up where you can't really see it, and it can lead to basically rot from top down. But a lot of the ones that catch people's attention are these ones where it's in the very base of the tree, there's a major issue. Other times, you might look at this and you will see, and if somebody takes a picture of a tree, it will look like in the picture, there's nothing wrong with that tree as it got cut. Because in the picture, you cannot see that the wood is soft. It may be, if you were to take like a pocket knife, you might be able to easily pop out chunks of it because it's all decayed, but it just visually at a distance doesn't look like it's got issues. That's another one we run into where people send me pictures of it, but I was actually out there and was looking at the rot while I was standing right next to it. So it's like, oh, I see why this one had to come down this time. I will say by myself, I am no expert in trees. That's why I have 4 guys on staff that are all certified and take classes on this. I have learned a lot from spending time with them, talking to them, looking at these, especially, unfortunately, after a lot of storms, when their, limbs are down, trees are down. And a lot of times you have to be right up next to them to see where the issue is, or if you're not there, as it's getting logged out, and depending on where it is, can affect how we log it out. Like I would say, if a tree comes down on, like, Bird, because of all the parking there, we can't really leave the logs there. We have to get them out immediately. So sometimes people think we remove it because we don't want them to see it. Well, it's the area doesn't allow for us to keep them there.
We have heard that, yes.
Other areas where we got more open area, it's not an issue to, leave it out there for a few days and actually get it as part of a logging route. So it depends on the situation.
Commissioner Host.
You've done a great job, and to think that we have 4 certified arborists is fantastic. But considering my hairline, I want to talk about this reverse mohawk. Are you consciously not planting trees under the utility wires, or if you are they very short trees
Yep.
that won't grow?
Yep, so exactly. There's certain species of trees that stop growth at random heights would be like 14 feet, 26 feet, stuff that's below the actual power line. So we take into account the actual elevation of the power line. So if the power line's sitting at 30-some feet, we can afford a tree that has a higher growth to it. But yes, we do actively, if we have to plant under a power line, we plant a tree species that will not grow to the height to go around that anymore. I'm sure back when they put through the power lines, when the trees were much smaller, that thought wasn't really taken into account when they were putting the power line in, or it's practice that's kind of changed over time, where society has become a little more educated as it comes to, oh, hey, this tree will eventually be around that, and I don't like the way it looks when they chop it, basically, so that it's not affecting the power lines. So, to quote Brendan and what he just sent me, he goes, we plant the right tree in the right place, 20 or 25 feet or less, depending on the location. So.
Anything else, Commissioner Host?
No?
Yeah, I know, our street, our backyard used to be an alley, so we have power lines, and many of my neighbors and myself engage our own tree trimming to the degree that we can sort of try to do enough work on our own to not attract DTE's attention. So, because, yeah, they just butcher stuff. Commissioner Haig.
I think DTE actually have some guidelines for vegetation in general around their power. I seem to remember reading it. They ask for everything a certain radius away from power lines, and they do state that there is a circular radius around the line that they will trim back to. Trimming is a very liberally used, but I think clear cutting is actually a better word to use with that. But so the question I wanted to ask, because we've gone through an awful lot of background, we've gone through a lot of detail of what are the facts of what happens and why it happens. And I'm actually looking forward in the package at point 10E, which is communication regarding tree preservation, and the point brought up by Commissioner Emmerich about how do residents communicate with the city. So I'm thinking it actually, if it makes sense to everybody else, perhaps we actually link what we're doing right now and that particular item, because I think your question was very pertinent as to the communication. There is a communication regarding tree preservation. I know this couple here have been waiting quietly because they have some observations, some points, and some questions as well. So I'm wondering, do we want to bring that to this and engage it in this piece of the discussion because it has a logical connection, or do we wish to wait? And it's based off questions that have happened now, because I think it's relevant.
So the communication item is just their submission of the petition that they have and what they would like to do about asking the city to establish an ad hoc committee. I'm assuming that you're Mr. Lockwood?
I am.
And so we spoke by phone, and I explained what the process is, that this is not a full agenda item tonight. It's submitted as a communication item. But I think that while you are still in the room, if Mr. Lockwood would like to, ask questions or make some comments, that would be fine, rather than waiting till the communication item.
Then that's where I wanted to go, because I'm very interested in this request regarding tree preservation. There are certain criteria that I have in my mind that I explained briefly to Mr. Lockwood and to others, and it's very similar to what Mr. Zielinski's also said about things like the maples in particular. I look at them as there is a very defined lifespan. I actually always use 70 years, so it's funny you go 60 to 80, so I was apparently in the same range. It gets to that point in time, I look at it and say the alarm clock is starting to ring on a maple. Conversely, if you're looking at an oak tree at 70 years, it's a teenager. It's got a huge run in front of it. There are other things that I've looked at in the past. I've asked the question before. I haven't received a satisfactory answer, and so that's why I would actually be very interested in a tree preservation or a tree husbandry, I think maybe a better word, group within the city, because we do have the manual from Davy, and nowhere in it does it talk about things like pollarding. And pollarding is actually an extremely successful way of allowing extremely large trees to survive. The example I'll give you is that we own a house next door to the one that I grew up in. My grandparents lived there. We have pictures from the 1800s of this house. And the tree that's in the front yard is the same tree that's there today. And in my lifetime, we've pollarded it twice. So the base of the tree is about 5 feet in diameter. This is gigantic chestnut tree. Drops stuff everywhere in the fall. It's annoying to clean up. But we've had that thing cut down, trimmed back appropriately by professional trimmers. There's probably the equivalent of 100 feet of vertical growth hasn't happened because it's been trimmed down. So it's actually bushed out, and it has an extremely robust trunk. And it's a healthy tree. When it gets unhealthy, we're taking the thing down, because at 5 feet in diameter, the mass that would fall onto the house is absolutely astonishing. So I look at things like that and say, are there ways that we could do this? Because yes, it's nice to have these great, magnificent trees, but kind of to the points that you've made, that when we get storms, you're getting to a much larger lever that is being pushed on by winds that is creating much more stress inside any structure that is large, just general engineering principle of leverage. And then we see more risk. So how can we maintain some of these bigger, older, more magnificent trees with different husbandry practices? And that's where I see this opportunity as being one where we could have something, and we could, to Commissioner Emmerin's point, have a conduit for concerned residents or engaged residents to say, hey, I would like to look at this. What can we do differently? And then come up with different ideas, such as when we have the 5 foot or less easement, is there, instead of a tree, is there a shrub style that could be looked at that will give some sort of vegetation that's not just grass, but it's not a large tree because it doesn't have that root ball, etc. Just examples. So I see there being a way of combining both of these, and I would be very interested in seeing how we could do that. And this presentation really condensed some of those thoughts very nicely by having very specific examples, very specific detail, showing what the experience inside the city is, and then with the engagement that we have from clearly so many people that signed off on that particular request. And that is actually, I know of 2 separate ones now, because I have another friend of mine asked about exactly the same issue, and his name isn't on this list, but he said he signed off on another list for exactly the same purpose. There's at least 2 groups in the city that are very interested.
Are these, the electronic ones, I think, are from a change.org position?
Then actually, you
petition
know
that
what,
was-
then that must be the one I was thinking of, because he
There
signed
was
off on
one
change. I
a
beg your
while-
pardon.
a while
I was
back.
thinking of the
Yeah.
written signature one,
Yeah.
so I beg your pardon. So there's clearly groups that are interested, and like we said earlier with the applicants to boards, we don't want to turn down people that have an interest in something, because that interest is really showing community support. But how do we make sure it's in alignment
Yeah.
with where we need to go?
And what is the mechanism that we want to use if we do that? I'm not sure that an
Exactly.
ad hoc committee is the appropriate.
I don't know yet.
Madam Mayor.
We do need to go through the process of discussing it, but this seems like a
Right.
perfect segue into that particular item, because we've had so much depth of detail.
Commissioner Host?
You know, by design, aren't we trying to move this toward the agenda, make it a full-fledged agenda item?
I'm not that would be up to a commissioner to propose that.
Well, I agree with the proposal that our residents have brought forward with a significant number of signatures. It can only improve a great forestry division to have the input of our citizens. And so I would like to make a motion to place on the next meeting's agenda the proposal to form a citizen advisory tree preservation board to assist us in carrying out and communicating our city tree policies and protocols.
I think, Commissioner Host, the way that we normally move from steps 1 to 2 to 3 is we make a motion that we would like it to be on the next reasonable agenda, but we do not dictate the date, because that is up to the city manager based on the amount of things that are already on the upcoming agenda.
Okay, the next reasonable agenda.
I'd second that.
All right, so,
If it's the appropriate point in the meeting to be doing this, which it isn't really, but
no, it's not. It is not really. So, with some commissioner discretion. So we have a motion, we have a second. But what we have not done was Commissioner Haig's hearing from the petitioner. So maybe if Commissioner Host, if you don't mind, if we just let this lie for a second while we hear from Mr. Lockwood,
Sure.
if he
and
wishes.
I don't know if Scott wants to keep standing there.
Well, no, Scott can sit down, but if you wouldn't mind being,
Another topic after this.
if you wouldn't mind being available to
Technically,
answer
it is.
any, yes, thank you. So,
Well, I guess I will just start, and then I'll hand it over to my husband, who knows much more about the details of how he would like to see a.
so your name and your address, please.
Oh, my name is Patrice Lockwood, and I live at 650 Lakeview Avenue. And I just wanted to say a few things before my husband describes what we think might be a possible advisory committee structure or the purpose of it. But I wanted to thank you for your very extensive discussion on the trees and for your concern over the health and safety of our residents. I appreciate that. I guess what I feel like I would like to hear a little bit more about is how some of the trees are evaluated. I understand, and I completely understand, that the maple trees, particularly the silver maples, have a life cycle between 60 and 80 years, and we're approaching that on a lot of these trees. I do question whether there might be some professional input as to how these trees are evaluated. I'm aware of a few things, like there is a pressure coring device that can be, the tree can be cored to determine how big of an area of decay might be present in the tree. I'm also aware that a tree, that has a very large circumference, if there is an area of decay in the center, the perimeter of wood, if it's in good shape, is like a pipe. It's very strong, and so if the decayed area maybe doesn't exceed a certain percentage, perhaps it can be delayed a little bit. I know eventually it will be needing to come down, but even if a year or two delay would help to stagger the removal of some of the trees in the area so that we don't decimate a whole street. I was looking at a couple streets in the area that I am pretty sad at what they look like now. Suffield, north of Renell, is one of those. I think there's maybe one mature tree left on that street, or two at the most. It doesn't look anything like the streets in Birmingham that I love and love the canopy. So I would like to see some more input as to how we determine which trees need to be removed, whether there can be a staggered process some trees that might be healthy enough to last for a year or two yet. And I do believe that having some outside expertise, to consult with that and to, and determine those issues. I am aware of at least 2 instances where an outside arborist did speak to the city forester and had a difference in opinion as to whether that tree needed to come down right now, whether it was urgent or whether it might be able to have a couple years' life yet. And that information was disregarded. So I would like to see a citizens committee that might have some input on that. So that's my
Thank you.
hope.
I would like to clarify the test that they're speaking of. We would not advise using it on silver maples because it provides another point for water to get in and cause decay.
Is
It's
there-
actually a bad test to be doing on
Is
that.
there a way that that plug could be sealed with a little bit of tar or some material that is, that the tree can tolerate? I see a lot of trees that have had limbs trimmed off and they are treated with something by an arborist. I'm not sure exactly what that material is, but it seals the opening to the tree. And I'm also wondering whether trees that have some decay that started, is there any chance of injecting them with a fungicide that can counteract some of the, or slow down some of the process?
It would depend on the general condition of the tree. You have to remember that when the city identifies a tree that is in severe distress, something that even if we are able to provide any type of assistance to keep it alive, if we're looking at a window of like less than 5 years as the anticipated, I now have officially said, I have a problem. It may come down at some point, and now the city is under liability should that tree fall. And that is not something, again, these stories about like someone having a tree drop on their car, or drop on their house, and it ends their life. I cannot be the person who authorized something to stay that results in a life
I understand
loss.
that concern. I wouldn't want to have that hanging over my head, not to use a pun, either. However, you did mention that there are trees that you are watching, and I'm just wondering which trees you decide, okay, I'm going to watch this one, and this one's going to come down. So you are making a decision at that point.
Species type can become a contributing factor. I keep saying silver maples because I'm not kidding when I say it's somewhere around 80% or better of the trees we remove are silver maples.
I'm aware that they are a
And-
fast-growing, weaker tree when
Yeah.
they reach a certain point, but I'm just wondering whether there are tests that can be done to determine, okay, is it at its life now and we got to get rid of it or it's going to be a problem? Or can we test and see, we might have a couple more years yet?
So we do hammer tests, to clarify. It's where you walk around the tree and you quite literally are hitting it with a mallet to listen for echoing on if it has a cavity within it. It's one of the tests that they do as part of their level 2 review of all the trees. We look for non-destructive ways because when even if you put tar over that wound, you've created something that will never truly be healed. And water, if you've ever had experience with a basement that has had water come through a wall, water is quite miraculous at finding a way through the weakest point. And that's usually the contributing factor, especially on silver maples, to their decay is an intrusive point of water on the tree. It's where everything just kind of wanders in at that point and causes issues.
The hammer test is pictured on page 418 of tonight's packet.
I think it also, Scott, if, I know that my neighbors and I banded together to try to save a majestic elm that was the city tree in the right-of-way. We paid personally to have it injected by a top-notch arborist and attempted to save it for nearly a year, and I think it was like $3,500. I mean, so it's also a cost issue, I think, for being responsible with the city's tax dollars, about trying to save something that's clearly ill that we will replace. I don't know if the city does fungicide injections, but I know it is not inexpensive.
There is one recorded case that I know of where the city aided in the payment of having injections done on a tree. That is not current policy, mainly because the trees for those types of injections where they come up are trees that are on our prohibited species list. So it would not be reasonable for the city to help a tree survive that isn't intended to be in the city to begin with. It's not that we're going to go our way to cut it down, but it doesn't add. We do allow, as in the instance you're speaking of, residents to go ahead and like band together if they want to and pay for it themselves. That actually does happen in one neighborhood in town.
Right. Corton Lake was notorious for doing that for decades to save the elms.
Well, unfortunately, in my case, it didn't help. It didn't save it.
Yeah,
But-
and those injections don't guarantee that it's
Yeah.
going to survive by any means. It only helps limit the risk of them catching it, but if they've already got it, I don't believe it necessarily works 100%.
Yeah, I don't think there's almost no elms left on my street. So, if for the record, name and address, please.
Rodney Lockwood, 650 Lakeview. Thank you for taking the time to discuss this issue in depth. It's a very important issue. As Mr. Zielinski pointed out, homeowners, technically these large trees in the right-of-way but in front of their house, many times homeowner thinks it's their tree. They're confused on that. But they understand that that tree contributes value to their house. So when a large canopy tree is removed, that affects, of course, the shade and so forth, and also will affect the value of their home. What we're really looking to do here is to have some rational canopy preservation, and there are national standards that we could look to and rely upon. There's the International Society of Arborists, and they have a tree risk assessment qualification process, and using what's called a coder's formula. Are you familiar with that?
So I just want to clarify, that's the actual board that I believe Brandon is sitting on currently for the state of Michigan.
And he's certified under
With
that.
them, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the coder's formula, what it is my wife pointed out, the trees are somewhat, from a strength standpoint, are like a pipe. The pipe's strength is in the outside wall, but pipes are hollow. So there is a coder's formula, and the national standard is that if a tree that has no hollow point at all, or any internal hollow points, is 100% strong. When a tree gets down to, according to the coder's formula, to 66% strength, then it's considered an at-risk tree at that point. And there are various methods to determine that. There is resistograph that we talked about, which is a small drill and a pressure instrument. It costs about $3,000, and it's very effective. I disagree with from my research, with your assessment that it damages the tree. It's commonly used for that purpose. There's also sonic testing, which can be done, which is non-invasive. Mr. Zielinski mentioned a number of trees removed recently, and I differ with that number. I did as you perhaps know from a previous meeting, I did a FOIA request of the city back early in 2025 at the request of my wife, because she was observing all these trees being cut down. And a FOIA was from the period of start of 2022 to present was basically the start of 2025, so about a 2-year period. There were 2,000 documents that were given to me. About 1,000 of them were tree reports. So every time a tree came down, there was a report as to the reason for the tree, the size of it, the species, the address, and so forth. And there are about 950 trees, just short of 1,000 in this 2-year period. I'm sorry, this 3-year period, from 2022, 2023, and 2024. And looking at the reports, I didn't do a specific analysis of the diameters, but they pretty much were bigger trees, like 24-inch. I know there's one in front of a friend's house, 51-inch diameter. So they're very large. There's also a document furnished to me, which is the city's tree manual. Now, I don't know if that was produced by Davy Tree, didn't have any attribution to it. But it basically called for removals of trees that are considered at risk. And the at-risk definition in the Birmingham's tree manual is if a tree is expected to fall down or substantially lose within a 1-year period. It's pretty obvious that some of these trees that are coming down are nowhere near that point in their life. So I would suggest that either the tree manual be revised in some rational way or else it be followed. There's also many of the tree reports that accompany a tree coming down. There's a box that's checked called prohibited species. But when you look at the city ordinance, that there's a prohibited species list which says that only new trees that are planted cannot be from this list. It doesn't refer to existing trees being removed, but yet it's on the tree report with a box checked when the large trees are coming down. So it's being used in an inappropriate manner. All this aside, I think what we have here is as we started the process of this petition and circulation, and we're getting signatures from just a door knocking and email and telephone calls, we got about 160 submitted to the city without any kind of real attempt to do social media like change.org. We've not done that. Okay. But we are continually getting calls about let's say a lack of notice and then a tree coming down that doesn't appear to be reached its time. And I think the Citizens Advisory Committee would go a long ways towards restoring the faith of many of these folks who are seeing these issues, restoring the faith in the process by having actual Birmingham citizens involved. So I respectfully request that you consider it on an agenda coming up. I also respectfully request that perhaps the agenda date, if it is picked, perhaps avoid a couple days where I won't be here in town, so I can make a presentation in front of you on that date. So thank you for your time.
I want to clarify one thing. The tree manual calls out any tree that could fall within an anticipated 5 years, not 1.
That's not, it was in the manual I was supplying. So 1 year.
And I'll say, Scott, didn't you say that you were removing roughly 400 trees a year? And so 400 trees a year times 3 is 1,200 trees, and you said you had 1,000, so.
Yeah.
I mean, so
The numbers maybe are the same. Perhaps I misheard him. I thought he said it was 300 trees over extended
No,
period
he
of
said
time.
roughly 400 a year.
Annually.
Yes.
We're actually replacing that.
And
The
replacing-
475 replacement, we're actually putting more in than we're taking out
Right.
on an annual basis.
So I just would like to clarify that Mr. Zelinski did not misinform you
Okay.
for what.
I stand corrected on that. I will point out the trees that are removed are this, and the trees that are being replaced are, sometimes you put your fingers around them, so.
You want to
They're not
clarify
one- yeah,
that?
they're not
That was a point, that was a point a few meetings ago. We actually have an update on that.
Yeah, so we go out of our way in our order. It's half the reason why they're so expensive. It's usually 4 to 6 inch caliper trees minimum.
We changed it.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're now buying more mature trees, is what we're saying.
intentionally.
Right,
There
and-
are instances where the only tree available is
Right.
smaller, and I believe we receive discount when that occurs. If we're trying to get specific species and there isn't something available of the size.
Yeah, I mean, and the tree that replaced my elm tree is about like this now. I mean, it's been 10 years, but it's sizable and it's beautiful and it has a lovely canopy. It just takes time. The other thing is that the larger the tree you plant, the less likely it is to survive and thrive. There is a sweet spot where it's planting smaller trees, they're more likely not to die. And so, again, timing, economics, staff, yeah.
And to clarify, it's an accurate assessment that it's a lot of larger trees because it is a older tree that is being removed. To point out, most of the silver maples in town were planted somewhere close to the 50s, is the anticipated, especially off of when we get enough rings we can actually count to see how old they are. We're seeing that these trees are hitting that 70, 75, 80 years old, so they're hitting the end of their life expectancy. Then you get rot, and it increases how fast it's going to be, coming to an end on its life. But, I mean, it's a very fair assessment that it is a very mature tree that on regular is having to get removed.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So, thank you, Ms.
I do have a correction. 3 to 3.5 inches is the standard minimum.
Minimum, 3 to 3.5 inches. All right.
I just have a couple comments.
Certainly.
My now wife lived in West Bloomfield, and for 3 years I drove back and forth. And after storms, I can tell you streets that were blocked with large trees over there were horrendous. They don't have anything like we have here. There's always room for improvement. But I want to tell you my experience. I grew up in Bloomfield Hills. I've lived in Birmingham for almost 30 years, but I also probably spent an equal amount of time, half my life over there and in Bloomfield Hills and West Bloomfield, and they don't do anywhere near the job that we do here. There was a tree on this Arlington or Shirley or over in that area that came down on a car. I'm sure the city probably has records with regard to that. Came down on the car. It was a very large tree on one of those streets over in that area of town during a storm. And the neighbors were upset in the opposite direction of why it wasn't taken down sooner. So there is that process. And one last comment. We had a microburst storm, I think it was last year or the year before, in Southfield, just to the south of us. And there was on Pierce, when you go south of 13 Mile on Pierce, there was one house that had about 7 large trees come down, crisscrossing. The house was completely destroyed, and the homeowner survived because he happened to be standing in the middle of like an archway. And I drove past that house, and it was horrific. So there's lots of different sides to the story as to why we do what we do and what have you. And none of us want to have a family member, a friend, or a neighbor be in that situation, but it was horrific. That house had to be completely torn down. I don't know how he survived. So we are having those storms, and you reminded me of the child that was killed at an elementary school when the flagpole that wasn't properly maintained fell down and killed somebody's child at drop-off because the wind blew and it fell down. It's a similar concept that we have to take, that we have to keep in mind. So my last comment is I am I'm very much in favor of putting this and making an agenda item, but I'm not necessarily in favor of making an agenda item for any specific purpose other than further discussion on this, and then allowing more public comment, maybe some more people to attend from the public when that's noticed, and then going from there rather than pigeonholing it that it has to be an ad hoc committee or what have you. I would rather just put it on to a future commission meeting when it's appropriate, when we have time with all the other stuff we have on, and then talk about it further, then take more public comment and analyze it from that point, then to say that it has to be solely for the purpose of an ad hoc committee. That may or may not be the proper way to proceed.
So Commissioner House, could you please reread the motion that you made?
To place on the next reasonable agenda, the proposal to form a citizen advisory board on tree preservation to assist us in carrying out and communicating our city tree policies and protocols.
I'll re-second that.
So yes, I'm just clarifying, we had a motion, we have a second, but if there's not going to be, I mean, we can take the vote, but or we could have a friendly amendment that you would change the motion to say to continue discussing soliciting citizen input on tree policy and procedure, rather than making specifically to say to discuss forming this committee.
I'm happy to make the friendly amendment.
And who was the second?
Perfectly acceptable.
All right, so, Alex, do you have the new language?
Just typing it up.
Okay.
But I can take the vote and then type it as well, if you need.
All right, so now we have a motion to place on the next reasonable agenda further discussion of solicitation of citizen input on tree policy and procedure in the easement, right? Easement trees? All right, and we have a friendly amendment, we had the acceptance by the second.
Can I have a comment on the motion?
Yes, you may.
I don't think we need to change the motion, but I'd also like not just more citizen input, but more city input. Specifically, I don't know if it's appropriate or right to have Brandon show up, but I'd like to know more about him, his qualifications, his certifications. A lot of that was discussed tonight. Scott, you did a wonderful job of discussing it, but I'm still kind of in the gray. It seems like he's super qualified, and I'd like to know more about that.
Or maybe even have.
So maybe it's not just citizen input,
Right,
but
okay.
city manager's office input on that as well. I don't think you need to change the motion up, just.
Yeah, so Ms. Ecker, would that be acceptable to have an additional presentation about how we determine decay and have Brandon and Scott perhaps?
Yes, it's fine with me. We certainly have 4 qualified arborists on staff, and we have 2 consultants that can help us out.
Brendan's actually
Whatever
been on
that is,
Zoom the
however you
whole
guys
time.
want to talk about that.
I know.
One other comment, I think it was made, but I want to make sure it's very clear. We are only talking about city-owned trees in the easement. We are not talking about trees on anybody's private property.
Correct.
Let's make sure that that is very clear.
Right, but also, Scott didn't touch on it, but this policy also affects trees in medians and parks and, our wilderness areas. I mean, all city-owned trees.
City-owned trees.
Yes.
Yeah.
Public property.
Public property.
So do we need, can we clarify, Commissioner Host, in your motion that it's city-owned trees?
On public tree preservation.
Public tree preservation. Got that? Acceptable as a second? All right.
yeah.
All right, so with that much wordsmithing, any additional comments on the motion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, and Mr. Lockwood, I would suggest that you send an email to Ms. Bingham telling her what dates you are not available. Thank you. All right, we now move to commission discussion items from a prior meeting number 2, Landscapers Code of Conduct. Commissioner Haig.
Yeah, so, I read the report here. I'd actually read it. I hear what's said in there. I see the points in there. No, I did a commissioner battle and used AI to help draft up some ideas, and it was very educational for me as well, but it also brought in some points that he brought up. So because he's not here, and I know he actually gave me some individual feedback on the ideas that I had, would it be possible to table this until he's here to be able to let him express any thoughts as well? Because he did have some thoughts on it.
Yes.
And I think it would be fair to do that.
Possible?
Can I add to that? I think we shouldn't discuss this until we are at full force.
Right.
For a robust discussion.
Yes, and Commissioner Baller did reach out to me and to say that he only wished to defend the limit on the number of power operating.
That was one of the things that I put in there specifically based off his feedback, and some of the other things were from other specific
He had
feedbacks.
concerns about the rest of it being practical, so.
Like I said, I threw it at AI, and I gave disclaimers with what I put in there.
All right, so,
So I'd like to make a motion that we table this to a reasonable meeting that we're at full force and have a robust discussion.
Friendly amendment that that Mayor Pro Tem Baller is present since it was his issue. Not just that
no,
we're-
it was,
No, for
Oh,
full,
was yours
it was
too?
actually, I brought it up.
Oh, was it? I'm sorry, I
But
thought it was
actually
Commissioner
chatted
Ballard.
with him
Okay.
about
Well,
a number
here,
of points. and
then
it
I'm
was
going to
like,
get
no, he has
technical.
some-
I brought it up 2 years ago.
Okay, never mind then. I withdraw.
all right, so, we have a motion and a second just to move this discussion on the landscapers code of conduct to a future meeting.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That brings us to remove from the consent agenda. We have none. Communications. We had communications regarding the Wimbledon Cape Seal, communications regarding the naming of parks, communication regarding a community survey, communication regarding parking, and the communication regarding tree preservation. Commissioner reports. We have notice of intention to appoint to the Advisory Parking Committee. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Host.
This will be a public service announcement. A day or two ago on Nextdoor, a person from Berkeley wrote a very erudite statement about extreme heat and animals. And of course, if you watch the local TV stations during their weather reports, they might digress into saying how brutal it can be on the animals. As you know, I've been going to the farmer's market for 5 years, and I'm sitting right by the dog dish. And every single animal I see during these heat waves wants to get over to that bowl. But I just want to make the public aware that animals are under the same duress that we human beings are. And if you don't think so, take your shoes off and your socks and just walk around on asphalt and concrete for a while. I think you'll get the idea that that's no fun. It hurts. Ouch. Let's keep our animals in cool places with cool waters of, bowls of water.
I think, Commissioner Host, thank you. The official test is if you put your hand on the sidewalk or the pavement surface and you can't keep it there for 5 seconds without discomfort, you should be walking your dogs in the grass and keeping them off the streets. Commissioner Haig.
Thank you. So I got it's not fully formed because I read a report today, but it actually tied into another article I read about a week ago. And the report I read today was about the closure of major businesses in the west side of the state. What it projected is by 2050, Michigan is going to lose 700,000 residents because of contraction. So I've been for several years saying I actually don't fully believe what SEMCOG says about the growth curve that's happening in southeast Michigan. This was talking about Michigan as an entire state. So 700,000 is a significant percentage of the proportion of the population. The other side for the report I read about a week ago is it compared the major employer in every state in 1990 and 2023. I think it was 23 or 24. Now there are only, I think, 8 states left where manufacturing is the primary employer, and 36 states the primary employer is now healthcare. Back in 1990, it was like 4 states had healthcare and manufacturing was 20 or so. So when I start connecting dots, I think what we have to look at here in the entire region, it's a headcount reduction. It's an aging of the population, which we've talked about before. So my opinion here is that we need to think today, on a very long-term basis, what we're going to do for robustness of our individual municipal economy. We are in a very privileged position in Birmingham as far as our economy, but that doesn't mean it's immune. If the state's going to lose 700,000 people because of contractions, then we're going to feel the effects. I don't have a plan of what this looks like, but I think we owe it to our community to plan long-term. So strategic planning, 2060 plan, whatever we want to call it, we need to take this into account as far as what we're going to do to improve the robustness of Birmingham. How are we going to encourage appropriate future-proofed business, not just to look at the massive growth we have of furniture stores, because if we're losing 700,000 people and the economy is shrinking, nobody's buying $4,000 couches. It's as simple as that. That turns into an upside-down economy. We need to think of robustness somehow. And like I said, I don't have an idea right now. I've just started connecting dots by reading multiple points that show change. And I want us to think about this. I want to have that as an item that comes to the forefront for us, that we can be advised and proactive and not ignoring future problems and be reactive, or leave the reactiveness to our successors in reality.
Interesting. I thought there was also articles out there talking that the Great Lakes states were actually going to perhaps be better positioned than other states that are contracting, because there's already significant foreign investment in Michigan, Wisconsin, et cetera, because we are going to be a climate change haven where you will still be able to recreate, have fresh water, and produce food when perhaps California and Florida and Texas are less able to do that.
There is that as well. I saw something about it was specifically directed at fresh water, and then also the other article I saw today about Eagle suing Oakland County for the amount of sewage discharge into the lakes, which has contaminated them to a massive amount. So we're not exactly doing the best job of preparing for the future as an entire community. I'm not looking at Birmingham. I'm looking at the community as a whole. So we need to do our part. Now, is this linked to sustainability? Yes, but it's not just environmental sustainability, it's economic sustainability, because I do not believe what I see coming from SEMCOG. I think they're too drunk on spending other people's money and not understanding that the money is actually running out because industry is closing down. Kellogg or Kellanova, Herman Miller, and I forget who the third company was over in the west side of the state, they're gone. It's thousands of jobs are gone. So we need to plan ahead. That's all I'm saying. I want to plan ahead for economic robustness.
Okay, any other commissioner comment?
Yeah, really quickly. I brought up Oakland Avenue, and it's funny, both my comments are that general area. So when they redid Oakland Avenue.
It's Oakland Street.
Is it Oakland Street?
No.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it is not Avenue.
I'm looking at a map. It says Oakland Avenue coming off of.
Well, that's what it should be, but the actual name is Oakland Street.
Okay, well, whatever, the Oakland Street or Avenue, when you come off of Woodward and you start going to Old Woodward, and then right when you get to the split where there's the right-hand turn lane only, and then there's two other lanes that go over this way, and I had said that we need earlier markings because people get trapped in that left-hand turn lane, and then they want to go straight, and they cut off other cars. So right now, with the repainting of the roadway, they put an arrow basically right where you have to turn, like right where you would stop for the traffic light. And then back where that split is, they put the word only. And I think what they need, so it's like, and they're about 20 feet apart, 25 feet apart, the two. The problem is when you reach the only wording, you already are committed to your lane, right? And the reason why I'm saying is I've seen cars, as I mentioned in prior meetings, actually go into the intersection like they should go left, and they're cutting other cars off and going straight towards Willits. And so I don't know whether we could maybe put arrows back where the only is, which is where you're entering that spot where you really shouldn't be changing lanes anymore as it starts to go left. I'm not talking about the right-hand turn lane, just the other two lanes. So I mentioned that for the good of the group. The second thing is when you're coming the other way, and there's that bus stop that we put on Old Woodward, right by that intersection, there are people making left-hand turns to go north onto Old Woodward, and they're pulling into the bus stop lane because they get confused. They think it's a boulevard, and they think that cement barrier or that cement curb is actually where they should be turning. And then they're like, uh-oh, and they try to get back, and then other cars, they're trying to get back in again, and there's going to be an accident. I don't know whether we need to carry that curb a little bit more, whether we need to put a sign, but it's not happened just once or twice. Like every time I'm in that area, and I'm not standing there for periods of time, people are doing that. So I know why we put the bus stop in there, and they did a great job with it, but I think that it's very confusing for people turning left onto Old Woodward to go north.
All good points. Yeah, I witness that all the time.
So Ms. Ecker, Jana, can we have, was it Fleece and whoever designed it, could you transmit these remarks and then have them?
Absolutely. And the first comment you made about Oakland that you mentioned a couple of meetings ago, that's already been passed on to the multimodal board, Fleece and Vandenbrink, and our traffic consultants to look at what can be done. Of course, they have to follow traffic guidelines, and there's different standards and principles and what have you, but they're already looking at that first issue.
Perfect.
Not the second one about the bus lane, and
Yeah.
I will definitely transmit
I don't know if there's
that.
even cameras on the intersection they can like do a study, but I guarantee you that if there is a camera that's focused on that area, it wouldn't take too long before they would start seeing people doing that, because it's happening all the time for some reason.
Yes, we can pass that along,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, any other commissioner comments?
Here, I have one. In our packet is a house that made it into, I assume it was the Wall Street Journal. Well, I assume everybody knows 2 months ago, we were front page of the mansion section, Section 3, on Friday afternoons. I never thought to let everybody see it. I assume everybody knows about it.
Okay. Advisory boards, committees, commissioner reports, agendas, legislation, city staff. We have a report on the parking validation program.
Yes, and that's just in here because there was some discussion. Remember when we talked about making parking cheaper or more affordable for lower income workers, and there was some questions, and I didn't have the answers right there on the tip of my tongue. So yes, in fact, we do have a parking validation program, and yes, any of the firms and businesses within the city can apply for that. There's two things they can do. They can either get stickers and barcodes that they put on people's tickets to pay for their parking. That could be for employees, that could be for customers, that could be for, whoever they want. Or there's a system where they can go online on the portal and just simply pay for that person's parking, so that when they put their ticket in to go to the garage, it's paid for. So certainly all businesses have that opportunity to do that. And as Mr. Ford pointed out in his memo, he has gone to the BSD on multiple occasions and advertised that to the merchants and the business owners downtown to try to encourage them to do that. And I guess apparently 41 businesses do that right now. And this program does allow them to pay for 25% of the employees' parking, or 50%, or 100%. And every single one of them that participates right now pays 100% of the parking. So that option does exist. The technology is there. They can do that. And so, for instance, restaurateurs, I think we talked specifically about maybe servers that are making less amounts of money, that the restaurant owners, if they wish to attract employees, they can actually go in and provide this as a benefit, paying for the parking for their employees. Two easy ways to do it.
All right, and then we have Mr. Dupuis' dumpster report, part 2.
And before he says anything, if you see today's cranes, he comes off really well.
Yes, the article about the parcels on the corner of Woodward and Maple. All right, so did you wish to comment on your dumpster report, Mr. Dupuis?
No, not necessarily.
Keep up the good work.
Commissioners have any questions about the dumpster report? I see that we received yet another complaint about Cafe Origins dumpster migrating back into the alley today. So,
Yes. And we pass that along to code enforcement.
all right, thank you. Well, with that, could we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.